Hello sim racers and welcome back to the Fixed Setup Oval Racing Guide. In this episode we'll be covering week 12, which runs from March 1st through the 8th. It's hard to believe we're in the final week of season 1, but here we are. In last week's poll, C Fixed was your favorite series to run, but it was pretty close between the three main NASCAR series. With all three at the same track this week, I'll be curious to see how you vote, but I think I know what it's going to be. I'll just have to wait and find out if I'm right. I wanted to say how thankful I am for your incredible support on these videos. It's amazing to see how much this channel is growing week by week, and the viewership for each video keeps increasing as well. It's truly humbling. I appreciate it so very much. By leaving a thumbs up and comment on these videos, you help other sim racers find them a lot easier. But please do remember to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. It's the easiest way to guarantee you will not miss any episodes of this series for Season 2 and beyond. Now, YouTube tells me that 52% of the viewers on last week's video were not subscribed to the channel. I hope that today is the day I earn a subscription from you if you're not already subscribed. All you have to do is just hit that red button down below the video. There's no cost to do so. And remember, if you get sick of me or my content later on, you can just as easily unsubscribe. Okay, enough business talk. Let's get down to this week's races. And remember, each series is timestamped for your convenience down in the description below. Before we get into it, please take a moment to listen to these disclaimers. As with any skill-based activity, your mileage may vary with the information shared in this video. Sim racing requires individual effort in order to improve, and simply watching a video will not make you a better sim racer. Tips and tricks are not one size fits all, and you may need to adjust based on your skill level. These episodes are recorded before the week begins, so my guided qualifying lap should not be viewed as the gold standard for the best lap time possible. Treat this information simply as a starting point for your own practice routine. Any analysis or commentary that I provide comes from my own experience on iRacing and may not always directly translate to what you see. I am human, I make mistakes, and I can be wrong. I try my best to avoid errors and misinformation, but if I do make a mistake or leave something out, you have my apology in advance. Kicking us off, the ARCA Menard Series takes on the action track, Richmond Raceway, for a 50-lap race that takes place at noon in sim. For my qualifying run, I used a 14-to-1 steering ratio and 66% brake bias. My lap time was a 22.155, and I did this on the first lap of the qualifying session. For my race run, I kept the same wheel settings, 14-to-1 steering ratio and 66% brake bias. I found those settings to be the most comfortable for me. You may find otherwise. This car will absolutely get loose on exit if you're not careful with the throttle pedal. So while you may be able to be aggressive early in the run, it's unlikely to last, and getting out of the corners at Richmond will make or break your race. Also, watch out for dive bombs going into turn 1. That curved front straightaway really entices people to just throw it off in there because they think they can get underneath of you. It's super common to see people do that and cause a crash because they think they can just make it work. So drive defensively, and if somebody does something stupid, you're better off just letting them go instead of getting wrecked. In what could be the biggest bloodbath of the week, the C-Class Street Stocks go to South Boston for a 70-lap race that takes place at 1 p.m. in sim. Oh boy. For my qualifying run, I used a 12-to-1 steering ratio and left the brake bias at its default value. My lap time for this run was a 16.271, and I did this on the first lap of the session. Priority number one will be survival. South Boston is about as cramped of a racetrack as you're going to find on all of iRacing, and contact is really going to be inevitable. If you dive into this combo this week, do so with extreme caution. The chances of major safety rating losses is pretty high. I honestly can't imagine why anyone would want to do this aside from just watching the sheer chaos, but if that's what you're into, this is probably going to be right up your alley. Good luck out there. The NASCAR Legends series follows ARCA to Richmond Raceway. This time it's 65 laps and takes place at 4:45 p.m. in sim. I just want to say that I've had a lot of fun running these cars the past few weeks. Homestead was absolutely awesome. I ran a handful of those and found it just to be very, very fun and rewarding. A lot of people struggled, but if you have a good throttle discipline, I think you can find a lot of success in these cars. For my qualifying run, I used a 14-to-1 steering ratio and left the brake bias at its default value. My lap time was a 22.268. When these cars were at this track last season, I did run a number of those races, and I really enjoyed it. I wasn't sure what it was going to be like now, but I think it's largely the same. Requires the same delicate throttle touch to keep the tires happy. You don't want to overdrive the corners, so I don't think it's largely different. If you did this last season, I think you're going to find it to be pretty familiar. Back up the corners, use less brake pressure to make a smoother entry, and try diamonding turns 1 and 2. It's really a great strategy for the end of the racetrack. When you get to 3 and 4, you really want to keep it on the bottom, but be careful with wheel spin coming out of turn 4 as you unwind the steering wheel. You're going to see a lot of drivers get loose out of turn 4 because they're simply applying too much throttle. NASCAR heads to Sin City, Las Vegas this week. I'll be there myself this weekend as well. Can't wait to be out at the track all weekend long. And that means the top 3 fixed series in iRacing are going to Las Vegas as well. Let's start it off with C Fixed, 40 laps around Las Vegas Motor Speedway, and this race takes place at 12:10 p.m. in sim. For my qualifying run, I used a 16-to-1 steering ratio and 62% brake bias, but like last week at Atlanta, this lap is taken flat out all the way around the track. My lap time was a 31.243, and it's really all about how smooth you can be with the wheel. Less input means more speed, and that's how you go fast. If you ran Atlanta last week, Las Vegas is going to feel very similar in terms of how you manage your truck in the pack. If you get a good run off the corner, you're gonna take it to the inside of that truck in front of you, and you're also gonna hope you don't get blocked to the apron. But as we've seen with C Fixed at every mile and a half, it's likely going to happen, so just be ready for that. Protecting the bottom is very important, especially going into turn 3. Unlike Atlanta, you're going to find the bumps at the bottom of turn 1 and 2 can really hamper your ability to pass somebody because it slows the truck down, it bobbles about, and it hurts its momentum. So you may find that running a lane or two up from the bottom may keep your truck more stable, especially when you're single file. Just sort of look to see what other people are doing, and that's kind of the cool thing about Vegas, is you can move around just a little bit in turns 1 and 2, but in 3 and 4, you definitely want to be on the bottom. The B Fixed race at Las Vegas Motor Speedway is a 45-lap affair that takes place at 12:10 p.m. in sim. For my qualifying run, I used a 16-to-1 steering ratio and 62% brake bias, but again, like trucks, you're not using the brakes on this run. Just crack the throttle a little bit going into turn 1. My lap time was a 31.159, and I took about 10 runs to get there. I just felt every lap I could do a little bit better and I'd find something. So work hard at this one, but you'll know when you get it. The first lap of the run seems to be the faster way to go. It's all about not getting loose in turns 3 and 4 coming to start that lap. As I drove this setup, it feels very much like it's on the right front, meaning it's tight and it's only going to get tighter as the run goes on. It may lack a bit of rear grip on fresh tires, but it won't stay that way for long. It might be for a lap or so, and then it's just gonna be very much on that right front. I recall last season that B Fixed at Las Vegas was all about saving the right front tire, and if the race went green for very long, drivers would start falling off in lap time really bad because they weren't saving, and this feels exactly the same. If you're unsure how to save tires, this is going to be a tough combination for you this week. I recommend you check out my Tire Model version 7 tips and tricks video to learn more about how to make your tires last longer. I'll link that video at the end of this one. And the A Fixed race at Las Vegas Motor Speedway goes for 50 laps and is also at 12:10 p.m. Wow, all 3 series run at 12:10 p.m. That's kind of weird. Anyway, I went with a 16-to-1 steering ratio and 64% brake bias. Again, brakes not important on the qualifying run here. My lap time was a 30.278, and as you'll notice, I did not run the bottom in turns 1 and 2. Why? Unlike trucks and Xfinity, the Cup car simply cannot handle the bumps on the bottom. It hurts its momentum way too much with this small motor, large blade, 550 horsepower, high downforce, whatever you want to call it. It just slows the car down. So running the middle off the bumps actually allowed me to keep better speed and consistently get better lap time. So my lap time, 30.278, run the middle of 1 and 2, bottom in 3 and 4. Depending on how you drive turns 1 and 2, you will influence the rate at which your right rear tire wears. No matter what I did, the right rear tire wore faster than the right front. So that tells me throttle management will really be important at Las Vegas in this car. This combination last season was pretty enjoyable if my memory serves. and was not just flat out pack racing. Again, keep the car off the bumps in turns 1 and 2, and you're probably going to have a better time. Remember, not everybody's going to know about the bumps either, and if they don't, tell them to watch this video. But if somebody throws it up the inside into turn 1, be ready to take evasive action, because depending on how they hit those bumps, it might shove their car up the track and into you, or they might just flat out loop it. There really is no way to tell how people will approach this, but if they don't know what they're getting into, expect the worst. And finally, the NASCAR Iracing series, also at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, goes for 134 laps and starts at 4 p.m. in sim. I kept the same wheel settings that I used for A Fixed, 16:1 steering ratio, 64% brake bias, but again, you won't be touching the brakes, it's full throttle all the way around for qualifying. Just like in A Fixed, I kept it off the bumps in turns 1 and 2, and on the bottom in 3 and 4. My lap time was a 30.221. I'm not really sure what else to say about NIS that I don't already cover in A Fix, so I'm gonna turn to you. Tell me down in the comments section below what sort of guidance you'd like to see in future episodes when it comes to this series. I'm the opinion anything that I share in the A Fix section applies just the same here, because it's the same car, same track, just longer races, and perhaps a different time of day, but that really won't affect too much. So again, let me know down in the comment section below what you'd like to see covered when it comes to NIS fixed setup racing. And that's a look at week 12, the final week of season 1 for this year. Unreal how fast a season can go by. I hope that you're excited for season 2 as much as I am, continuing to do this series. Really looking forward to bringing you guys more information on how to tackle fixed setup oval racing in iRacing. And I hope that you enjoyed this final episode of season 1 and found the information to be educational, but most importantly, helpful. And if it was, please help me out. Again, leave a thumbs up on the video. And if it wasn't, leave a thumbs down. I don't mind. I need to know if I need to do better, and that's a great way to tell me. If you want to see more iRacing content similar to this, make sure you hit the subscribe button and turn notifications on so that you never miss an episode. Additionally, you can catch me streaming iRacing on my Twitch channel, linked down in the description below. If you want to get in touch with me and stay up to date on the latest channel activity, the best way to do that is to follow me on Twitter, also linked down in the description below. Again, thank you so much for watching this episode, and have a great week of racing.